All right, today is the last day that we're talking about small things that make big differences. Our last day for our dominoes. We have quite a fancy one up here today. It actually spells out something, but you can't probably see it from where you're sitting, so I'm going to tell you. It spells out God. All right? And so, who's going to do that? All right, come on. It worked. All right. They were talking about focusing on heavenly treasures. Heavenly treasures. I only have one verse today. It's from James chapter 1, verse 17. It says this: everything good comes from God. Every perfect gift is from Him. These good gifts come down from the Father who made all the lights in the sky. But God never changes like the shadows from those lights. He is always the same. That reminds me of Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And when you hear the word monster, what do you think of? I've never You better take her out for lunch. Well, does anybody else think of anything else? Well, I've never actually drank any of this stuff, but I did find this can out there in a recycling bin, and it says Monster on the front of it. I've actually heard that that's a symbol that means Satan, but I don't know. Maybe if you remember growing up, maybe there was a monster in your closet or under the bed, something like that. Maybe you just think of the movie. There's a movie out called Monsters. You know? Maybe you think of The Walking Dead. I don't know. But today, I'm going to talk about a monster, but it's none of those. The monster I'm going to talk about today steals your joy, distracts you from experiencing the true riches that Christ wants to give you. This monster is not looking to grab you by the arm or the leg or do anything to you that's going to pull you into a dark secret room. But this monster is busy and never rests until it has your heart. What is this sinister monster? Let's call it the money monster. The money monster. Jesus had something to say about this monster. He said this: do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And Paul said this, 1 Timothy 6:10, talking about money. He said, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So that's the monster we're talking about today. God wants to fill your heart with riches that are out of this world. But the problem is, we hold too tightly to all this stuff. To our toys and our trinkets, And because of that, we miss out on the treasures God wants to give us. He wants to give us treasures that last beyond this world. The money monster is alive and well. Focus with me this morning as we look at a little bit of that heavenly treasure that the Lord wants us to have. Let's drive three stakes into the ground of the foundation that we want to stand on. First one is going from mine to God's. Going from mine to God's. You know the illustration of the beach balls. And the little kid in the nursery that was hoarding all the balls and wouldn't let anybody else play with them. Well, he was someone that all about mine. It's mine. You can't have it. Well, I'm sure glad God didn't say that about His Son Jesus. He said, He's mine, but I'm sharing Him with you. You can have Him. He can save you. How is your heart when it comes to being generous? I'm sure you've probably heard Malachi 3:10 before. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse so that there will be enough food in my temple. If you do, says the Lord of heaven's army, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it all in. Try it. Put me to the test, the Lord says. Open the windows of heaven is an understatement, really. It's more like open the floodgates. That's what God can do for you. We have to realize that all we have really belongs to God. He's just letting us manage some of His stuff for a little while. And when we're done living on this earth, there's going to be somebody else's stuff to manage for a while. We should not look at giving as giving God 10% of what we have. We should look at giving as how are we using the 90% God's letting us have after we give Him back 10. Have you ever thought of that? How you're doing at the 90% God lets you have to use, to manage, to keep? If you can't live on the 90%, then you're living above your means. You need to make some changes. You see, giving to God is important. It's a small thing that makes a big difference. Not only in our lives, but in other people's lives, in the church's life. It's important. We should give to God because it's a good discipline for us. It keeps us thinking about what God has given to us when we give back to Him. Our giving is a blessing to God because it lets Him know that we've been thinking about Him. And we love Him. And we want to give back a little bit of what He's given us. Giving also allows the church to do the work that the church is called to do. Giving reminds us that Jesus said it's better to give than to receive. This keeps our focus on what God is doing rather than on what we're doing. I mean, God needs our help to do some things, but really it's all about Him, not about us. What am I doing? Well, that's important, but the more important question is, what is God doing? The real truth about giving is that it costs us more not to give what God tells us to give than not. We need to give God what is due to Him. If we can give God what He has asked us to give back, then we're doing something good. But if we can't give God back what He's asked us to give, then we're living too high on the hog. And we need to make some changes. We should cut back maybe on some of our stuff. Because the more stuff you have, the more time it takes to take care of that stuff. You know, you got to build bigger buildings to keep all your stuff. You know? Every time I drive by a garage, the garage door is open and there's not a room to put the car in there, I think that person has too much stuff. Do you see how important it is not dwell on its mind, but it's God's? That's the first stake. You want to get past its mind, because it's not. It's all actually belongs to God. He's just allowing us to have it for a while, to manage it, to use it, to do something with it. We'll have to give an account how we've managed the stuff He's allowed us to use and have. We need to give God what's His. We need to go from what's mine to what's God's. Second state is going from hoarding to sharing. Anybody in here ever had a hamster? All right. If you've had a hamster, if you know anything about hamsters, they are the top of the line when it comes to hoarding. You know, they'll hoard anything they can. It's kind of like a program on TV, you know, where you can't even walk through the room because, you know, just stuff everywhere. Well, that's kind of like a hamster. The nature of a hoarder is someone that says, hey, it's mine. It's not God's, it's mine. And I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to let anyone else have it. I'm not going to share it. We need to identify the hamster spirit in us. Because I think we all are that way a little bit. We all have stuff that we want to just not let anybody else share. You know. So we need to at least admit that we have that spirit sometimes. And we should try to do something about it. We should try to avoid the desire to acquire. I mean, God's going to give us everything we need, right? So, having this desire to acquire more stuff, to keep up with the Joneses, or the Smiths, or the Huffmans, or whoever, that's just something we should avoid. I never have yet, in all the funerals that I've done over 200 funerals, but I've never yet seen a U-Haul hooked to the back of the hearse on the way to the cemetery. Not once. This desire to acquire sometimes can be, a really negative thing. Especially if you're the family of the person who's passed on. Now you've got to take care of all that stuff. You don't even want some of that stuff, We need to replace the hamster spirit with the spirit of generosity. Like I was telling you in the children's moment, if you got more coats than you're wearing, give some of them away. Let somebody else have a coat that doesn't have one. We all know we are to be cheerful givers, right? We've heard that in meditations, we've read it in the Bible. That's true, it's important. You can't be a cheerful giver if you're a hoarder. You have the hamster spirit. You just can't. But when you're generous with what you have, and when you are sharing with other people, there can be cheerful giving then. There can be some cheerfulness, some joy in what you're doing. You know what an oxymoron is? Well, it's a phrase of words that we use together sometimes, but when we look at them closer, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because they kind of contradict each other and don't really mean what we're saying. Let me give you some examples. Act naturally. Think about it. If you're acting, that's not natural. Clearly ambiguous. If something's ambiguous, it's not very clear. Deafening silence. Friendly takeover. Government organization. I like that one. You do too, don't you? Half naked. Jumbo shrimp. Non-working mother. I like that one too. Plastic silverware. Pretty ugly. Seriously funny. We could go on, but you get the point, right? Saying that you're a cheerful giver and a hoarder, that's another oxymoron. You can't be a cheerful giver and be a hoarder. You just can't. Our generosity is not determined by the size of our bank account, but by the size of our heart. I've heard this, I can't give you a source for it, but I've heard it a lot of times that the best givers are from the middle class on down. They give more of what they have to people than the rich people. A lot of hot air in here. Domino's delivers. How generous we are is often a revelation of where our heart really is. You know, sometimes we just don't have anything to give, but other times we have stuff we should be giving, but we're not. Are we investing in eternal things? Are we investing in heavenly treasures? Are we investing in anything that's going to outlive us? Think about some of the things you could be investing in. They're going to outlive you. First thing that comes to my mind is children. You know, what are you doing for your children? Investing in them. Learn to be generous and sharing. That's the second stake you want to drive in. The spiritual foundation we're standing on. We must go from a hoarding spirit to a sharing spirit. We're a family, aren't we here at the Christian church? When one of our family is hurting, don't we share with them? Yes. Well, the third stake we want to drive in is going from fleeting to lasting wealth. And that really takes off from making investments that outlive you. You know, when it comes to the end of our lives, what is it that really matters? What is it that really matters when we're on our deathbed? Is it all of our stuff? I don't think so. We aren't going to be saying, hey, to our family member, hey, would you bring some of my stuff? I want to look at it one more time. No, I don't think so. I think we want our family to be around us. I think we want people that we have loved to be near. People who are on their deathbeds, do they say, would you check my bank account one more time so I know how much money I got? No, I don't think they're thinking about that anymore. Do you think someone on their deathbed is saying, hey, would you call work and tell them I'm not going to be in today? No, that probably doesn't cross their mind. See, when we are about to pass on, only the things that matter are our loved ones, our family, our faith. That's the important things. Those are things that are lasting. All that other stuff is not. Moth, the rust, we're going to take care of that for us eventually. When you're about to die, there's really only two things that you really care about: God and the people that are around you. All the stuff you've collected, all the stuff that's up in the attic or out in the garage, that doesn't matter. desire to acquire, that's gone, long gone. Only love and the investments you've made in other people, that's where it's at. And that's really all that matters. Those things are eternal things, hopefully. Wealth and possessions, they are fleeting. John D. Rockefeller said this, "I have made many millions of dollars, but they have never brought me any happiness." Andrew Carnegie said, "Millionaires seldom smile." Henry Ford said, "I was much happier when I was doing a mechanic's job than running this big company." These three wealthy men really are just a sample of wealthy people. Wealth does not satisfy because there's always the desire to get more. Kevin Harney says, there are 5 strategies to investing in things that last forever. We'll go through these fairly quickly. If you want to, really, if you want them, you can pick up a sermon handout. They'll be in there. Number 1, you must have a heart to love with God and the things of God. Number 2, you must give of yourself to help other Christians grow in faith. Number 3, you must share with the poor, the outcast, the forgotten. Number 4, you must have a strategy and consistent approach in giving. And number 5, you must care about the good news of Jesus and share it. 5 keys to investing in things that last forever. I hope you'll be thinking about some things you can do that invest in eternal things. Things that last beyond you. That heavenly treasure. We're not to hoard the investments God has made in us. We're supposed to take the understanding we have of God. We're supposed to take that relationship we have built with God and share it with people. Share it with others that they might know it as well. We're to invest in things that are eternal and last. I like Hebrews 13:16. It says, it warns us really, to not neglect doing good and sharing, for those sacrifices please the Lord. Well, that's just the third stake. We must go from fleeting wealth to lasting wealth. We're not necessarily talking about dollars and cents here. We're talking about that heavenly treasure. Those things that we invest in that outlive us. Those things that make an eternal difference. All month we've been considering jumping in with both feet. Doing the small things that make big differences. That's really what commitment is. Jumping in with both feet. We've used dominoes. We've used other illustrations to illustrate that just doing something small, something little, can make a big difference. You may think, well, you can't do much. Who am I? I can't do anything. You may be thinking you're just somebody small, but it's the small things that make the big differences. I hope you will consider what small thing you can do that can make a big difference for yourself, for your family, for your neighbors, for people you work with, people you go to school with. Do something that makes a difference for their lives. You'll be investing in their future as well. See, it's time to do more than just test the water by sticking our little toe in. It's time we jumped in with both feet. Don't hold anything back. Don't leave anything on the field. Give it all. You got it. Do something small. It makes a big difference. We can all do that. We can. If we will. Would you take a small step today toward God? We're going to sing an